I'm always up early and was spending my time doing what I need to do, sitting quietly, perhaps thinking and asking for new ideas, maybe listening for them, perhaps kind of pouring myself into my day and into the people that I care about deeply. And I was beginning to wonder, maybe it won't happen today. But then, 4:57, the yelping, the screaming, the howling, oftentimes the blood-curdling noise, indeed, it did begin. And I said, there we go. Once again, I was right. The killing hour has begun. Indeed, it's the killing hour. And that's going to lead to some stories about what it might be and what that might mean for you, truly, as someone who wants to be a world-class business entrepreneur, one who wants to be a master entrepreneur. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Stan Houston. The program begins right now. And indeed, in that first minute, I set the scene for a story. Obviously, some of you are curious. That's a rather awesome, macabre title, isn't it? So what's this all about? Well, let me prelude it first, okay? Recently, just yesterday, at least I discovered that the Harvard Business Review had done research and discovered what I already knew. And that is that highly effective entrepreneurs oftentimes get more ideas if they take time to get their rest, to sleep more. And that matches my experience. I also know from years of personal experience and working with world-class entrepreneurs that most of them have a strong morning ritual. They do a lot of the same things all the time, all the way, as a beginning to their morning. And they oftentimes know that the time between maybe 4 or 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock will oftentimes be the mark and the set for their day. They truly are morning people most of the time. And that includes me. I now realize that for the most part, I'm not nearly as sharp as I used to be as a younger man. And by 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, my eyes are tired, and I'm tired. And it's hard to concentrate or think. And so I do what I should do. I usually go to bed. And so I'm an early-to-bed person, kind of like the Ben Franklin. But I also am an early-to-rise person. And I will find myself usually awaking somewhat after 4 o'clock. Don't have an alarm clock, at least a mechanical one, but there certainly is an internal one that seems to get me up shortly after 4 or 4:15. Sometimes if it's a stressful night, I might be up at 1 or 2, and of course then I proverbially have a glass of tea or a glass of iced tea, or maybe even warm milk. Strange combinations. And that sometimes gets me back for another 2 or 3 hours of rest. Just part of my own experience. Well, I live in the desert, in the southwest. And we have in this area about 25, 30 miles outside of Tucson, Arizona, where it is always dark. That's right, because in the little village that I live, because we want to enjoy the clear sky, particularly at night, that street lighting and a lot of external outdoor lighting is just not allowed. And so there is, of course, a little bit of the lighting that is allowed around each home, but the sky is usually very clear. We have many, many cloudless days, and the stars are incredible. Just to go out sometimes and watch and view them and put my binoculars is even good enough. Don't even need the telescope that I once had. So I enjoy that part of the day. But here's also what happens. There's a lot of wildlife all around, and the primary creature who roams the desert is the coyote. And of course, just like Wile E. Coyote, there's also a lot of roadrunners. And it turns out there's a lot of wildlife making their way around the desert. And it seems that between 4 and 5 o'clock, it's not uncommon. In fact, it's more common than not that there will be a coyote kill. Oftentimes, of course, they're running in packs, and what they will do is they will find a predatory victim, and they'll take them down. And of course, what happens is the animal itself may obviously scream and holler, but what happens is that the pack of coyotes then jump in, and they scream and holler and fight with each other for the remains of the kill. That's often what happens. But sometimes the coyotes have it turned on them. And perhaps a bigger cat, maybe a mountain lion or something like that, may have come down and he may have taken out a coyote or two. And of course, they yelp and scream in defense and in protection of the pack. And so, 4 to 5 in the morning, in the desert, I'm usually awakened because it is the killing hour. Something has died. Painfully, terribly, harshly. And it happens just before dawn in the desert. That's what we call the killing hour. Well, you say, Stan, what does that have to do with me? Well, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about that, but I also want to do just before I tell you that story, because that's all I've been doing. One of the things that we have done a great deal of, both at the Christian Entrepreneur Network and my past experience with the PTM group, is we know the power of storytelling. And storytelling is the only effective means of communication. And we have developed a wonderful program that we'd like to bring to you and your business. It's called Storytelling is the Key to Sales Success. Let me tell you that again. Storytelling is the key to sales success. And let me tell you this. Everything you have learned about selling in the past is probably wrong. There are no sales systems that will work for you. There are all kinds of things you must do differently. The people who have been selling you the sales systems from the past 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and most of them haven't changed in 50 years. They're wrong. But we have a new and modern way, we call it selling strong. And right along with that is storytelling is the key to sales success. So if you'd like to know how to be better at sales for the stuff you have, the services you provide, for the person you are, you want to sell yourself. I wrote a book on how to sell yourself. We'd be glad to help you. So reach out to us. I'm stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. If that's too hard, radioedge77@gmail.com. That's easy to remember. Radio on the Edge. radioedge77@gmail.com. We can help you make your mark in the business marketplace today. I'm Stan Houston. We'll be right back. And we are back. Also, by the way, those of you who are listening to this podcast, you're one of the smart ones. Here's the reason why. You understand that the world is moving to podcast broadcasting, what I call iPod. Individual, personal on-demand radio broadcasts, and companies and organizations and smart, self-promoting persons, self-employed entrepreneurs are realizing that they're going to have to do storytelling, and they're going to do it by podcasting. And once again, we can help you do just that. Well, what's my lesson by the killing hour? Well, just a couple things that I hope might be helpful, and they're not macabre. What happens is life. That's life. That's the way it works. And many times I've watched while a strong hawk has circled above, then all of a sudden made a dive, and a poor little bunny is breakfast for the hawk. Happens all the time. There's lots of bunnies, little rabbits all around, but most of them don't make it to full adulthood. That's the way, the law of the jungle, or the law of survival, or the proverbial predatory food chain oftentimes works. It's the killing hour. First of all, Peter Drucker made a comment. He said, "I cannot help a person lead a business unless they can tell me how they want to be remembered." And what is true is, when I hear the animals doing what they do, I'm reminded of my own mortality. Yeah, that's going to happen. It's not going to be terrible, I hope, but I will die. And the power of the entrepreneur is to know that they will not be here forever. They will die. Now, if you're a Christian entrepreneur and have the Spirit force within you, you can handle that realization a lot differently than those who have no idea. But it reminds me, since my life is short, and my business is even shorter, all the people that I have a relationship with, how do I want them to remember me? As a man, as a father, as a spouse, as a business owner, as a business leader, as a member of my community, when they bury me or burn me up and then have a few moments to talk about me, what will they say about me? What will they remember about me? And unless you know that, you probably don't know what you should do in the morning the next day. But if you know that, it's easier to decide what the day's going to be like. And so that's what you do. It's vital that you every day confront your mortality and how you will live out that day. And even ask yourself the question, what if today is the day? Are you going to leave any messes around that need cleaning up? Or at the end of the day, will hopefully the messes be cleaned up, and you will not die with deep regrets in your heart, mind, and spirit. Just think about that. There's something else. I'd like you to know a little bit more about that 23rd Psalm. Almost everybody knows it as an admonition. But I would ask you to do this. Go to it and turn it into an affirmation or even into a prayer. Okay, the Lord, you're with me, babe. Show me where to go. Guide me and protect me. And even when I go through the valley of the shadow of death, and you will go there, I will fear no evil, because you're with me. Years ago, a man named Ernest Becker wrote a book called The Denial of Death. And there are a number of business leaders that I've worked with who say that's a vital book to read. Ernest Becker, The Denial of Death. Actually, when Tom Peters started this whole thing with the book In Search of Excellence, which goes back now well over 30 years, classic bestseller, that's where he made his mark. He says that a lot of his inspiration came from the book The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. Make it very short and perhaps a little bit simpler. What Becker says is it is the fear of death which is the root of all of our other fears. All of those other fears that go out and plague us, the phobias and fears that we have, if we do the work, we'll find out that many of them are actually rooted in our fear of our mortality, of our fear of death. That incredible fear is the source and the root and perhaps the spiritual source of all our other fears. And once that fear has been diminished or conquered, the other fears begin to recede and maybe even go away. And as someone said, and that someone was me, you'll be able to be fearless, which means you'll have less fear, and maybe, by God's grace, you will even be fearless. And can you just imagine what life might be like if by the strength of your own will and the strength of God's Spirit within you, you truly were fearless? As a world-class entrepreneur, it might be helpful to remember the killing hour, about your own mortality, about the fact that if you can do the 23rd Psalm, you might be a world-class entrepreneur. Just let that sit on your head for a while today.
Day by day, day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see Thee more clearly, love Thee more dearly, follow Thee more nearly, day by day.
15 minutes today, hopefully a conversation that counts. By the way, we can help you do a podcast like this. Maybe you want to do a Fast 5 one. We do those. Then we have 10 minutes of clarity, just a little 10-minute podcast. Usually a conversation that counts is 12 to 20 minutes, and if you're going to do a podcast, those three genres are your best deal. If you want to do something longer, fine. If you do an LP, something that's long playing, well, it better be really good, because most people are not going to hang around for 40, 50 minutes unless you really do something good for them. As I oftentimes point out, everybody is listening to the same and favorite radio station, which is WII-FM. What's in it for me? And remember that. That's one of the keys to being a world-class salesperson. What's in it for me? Remember, we can help you with storytelling is the secret to sales success. And we can help your sales team become more powerful and thoughtful and effective than they have ever been before. So just ask me how we can do just that. StanHouston@gmail.com, Radio Edge at Radio Edge 77. I'll get that right, at gmail.com. Hey, all the best and blessings to you. Don't be afraid, even if you're walking in the valley of the shadow. And when the killing hour reminds you of your own mortality, as it does for me every day, I can say, I will fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff, they protect me. Again, best and blessings on your day. May it go well for you. Bye for now.